Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Hey folks, we're back with another popular debrief, and this episode debrief is of a real incident where actually nobody saved the day. Nobody made a heroic call that changed the outcome, and 6 people died in a fire that never left the 5th floor of a 30-storey building. And every single one of them was found above the 20th floor. We're going to tell this story not as a list of what went wrong. We never do that on any of the debriefs, but as a piece of hopefully operational education. We're going to follow the smoke, we're going to follow the physics, and we're going to ask the questions that this incident demands we ask about the buildings we respond to right now, tonight, whether it's in the UK or across the world. This isn't history, it's your next high-rise incident. Today's incident was 2 Forest Laneway, North York, Toronto, Canada, January 6, 1995. Fire itself was discovered at approximately 0500, and the fire department was called at 5:09. First crews were on the scene at 5:14. 6 civilians killed, and 5 firefighters were hospitalized. Now, you've heard it twice already, but we're going to start with the zoom in that 6 people died in this fire. And it wasn't in the burning apartment itself, not even on the floor where the fire started. Every single one of them was found above the 20th floor in stairwells in a building where the fire was essentially contained to one room on the 5th floor. Think about that again. The fire was on floor 5. The bodies were above floor 20. That distance, those 15 plus floors, it's not an accident. It's not bad luck. It's physics. It's building design. It's a series of decisions made by people who had not necessarily the thought at the time that they were making life and death choices. And it's a story that every firefighter working in any building taller than they can comfortably walk up needs to hear. So let's get into the debrief. This is 2 Forest Laneway, North York, Toronto, Canada, January 6, 1995. Let's get into it. It is beyond a privilege to be able to bring the Firefighters podcast to you, and we are so grateful for every single person that supports, listens, shares, and follows our journey. And to help us keep doing it, create more, reach more guests internationally, and make the podcast sustainable, we're asking for you to help. And to do this, we've set up a Patreon page. By joining our Patreon community, you will get access to every single full episode archive we have ever made. Now, hundreds and hundreds of key documents that we've got in there on fire behavior, firefighter health, cancer risks, incident debriefs, and so much more. So if you feel like you want to join the Patreon crew and help us make this possible, head to patreon.com/TFFPC or check the link in any episode podcast notes. Now, before we get into the fire itself, we need to talk about the building, because the building is not a backdrop in this story. The building is one of the characters. It's a protagonist, if you will. So this is 2 Forest Laneway. It's a reinforced high-rise concrete residential block built in the early 1970s, 30 floors, technically 29 usable floors, because the building, like many of its era, doesn't have a 30th floor. There's 365 apartments. You can tell we've done a bit of a dig on this one. Approximately 560 occupants on the night of the fire. Sound familiar? Well, it should, because this building is not particularly unusual across every major UK city: London, Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, Glasgow. There's hundreds of buildings built in the same era from the same thinking to broadly the same design principles: concrete, high-rise, residential, built at a time where the primary fire safety strategies was build it out of materials that don't burn, divide it into compartments, and let the occupants sort themselves out. The building had individual smoke alarms in each apartment. Again, sound familiar? Central alarm system activated by pull stations or heat detectors. Had fire-rated construction and pretty much good compartmentation in principle, I suppose. Didn't have any sprinklers. And here's the detail that will come back to haunt everything that follows. The building's alarm sounders were located in the corridors only, not in the apartments. That's in the corridors. That matters, and it matters enormously. And we're going to come back to it, so remember that one. So the staircases. This is where I really want you to picture something, because if you haven't encountered this design before, it's not immediately intuitive, to say. So 2 Forest Laneway has what's known as a scissors staircase. So one stair shaft in the center of the building, but inside that single shaft, two completely separate interlocking staircases wound around each other like a double helix, if you've seen sort of a picture of one of those. If you walked into that building, looked at the stair core, you'd see one set of doors and you'd assume one staircase. In reality, there were two, sharing the same vertical space, accessed sort of alternatively on alternating sides depending on which floor you were on. So why does that matter? Because in this sort of incident, in smoke, in darkness, in a state of stress, occupants and sometimes firefighters can likely and were navigating a staircase that didn't behave the way that a staircase is supposed to behave. People didn't know which of the two staircases they were in, to be honest. People changed staircases mid-evacuation without realizing it. 14 people, when surveyed afterwards, reported having to switch staircases during their escape. That's 10% of the building's occupants believed incorrectly there was only one staircase. Post-incident research on this, carried out by the National Research Council of Canada, explicitly states that the scissors stair arrangement caused confusion among both the occupants trying to escape and the firefighters trying to rescue them. One building, one stair shaft that contains two staircases, and almost nobody, occupants or residents, fully understood what they were dealing with. Ask yourself now, in your area, how many high-rise residential buildings have this design? Is there any? There may very well be. When did you last walk those stairs? We'll come back to that too. So the building detail I want to give you before we talk about the fire itself. So let's talk about the neutral plane. In a tall building in winter, there's a phenomenon called stack effect. We've spoke about this on the podcast before. So cold air outside, warm air inside, tall vertical shaft. And you get a powerful chimney effectively. Air and smoke don't rise gently in a building like this. They are driven upward. Taller the building, the colder the outside temperature, the more powerful that effect is. So in 2 Forest Laneway, physicists and engineers later calculated that the building's neutral plane, the point where the upward pressure and the downward pressure sort of balance out, was at approximately the 16th floor. Above the neutral plane, everything was driven upward with force. Smoke doesn't drift up there, it gets pulled up really hard. The fire was going to start on floor 5. So the neutral plane was at floor 16. The casualties were going to be found above floor 20. None of this was accidental. Let's go to the night itself. January 6, 1995. It's early morning in Toronto. Outside is sub-zero, which is quite common for that time of year. Bloody cold there. Residents in the 560-odd apartments on 2 Forest Laneway are almost to a person asleep. The building's post-incident survey found that 84% of occupants were asleep when the fire began. 92% were still in bed when they first became aware something was happening. This is important, and it's something we think about when we put together evacuation strategies, because we're not talking about an afternoon fire where people are alert and active and paying attention. We're talking about a fire in the morning in a high-rise block in the middle of the Canadian January, with 560 people unconscious effectively, or very nearly so. So in apartment 509 on the 5th floor, a sole occupant is awake. He's been up working on his computer in the second bedroom. Sounds a little bit like me. And around 5 in the morning, he notices something. Smoke coming from the living room. He goes to look, and the couch in the living room, is on fire. Smouldering at that point, but on fire. He does what almost probably any member of the public would do. He goes to the kitchen, fills a saucepan with water, comes back and throws it on the couch. Couch bursts into full flame. Now he panics. The smoke is intense. He does 2 things, both of them instinctive, both of them completely understandable, and one of them will set off a chain of reaction that kills 6 people. First thing he does is open the patio door to the balcony. 2, in his mind, get some fresh air to vent the smoke. Rationale. You're in a smoke-filled room, you open a window or a door. That's human. That's what maybe anyone would do. Second thing, he leaves. And when he leaves the apartment door to the corridor wide open. Doesn't slam it behind him, doesn't pull it closed. He leaves it open and he leaves. Today's episode is proudly supported by PBI. For over 40 years, PBI has been trusted and proven in the fire service, protecting what matters most, firefighters. PBI develops high-performance protective fabrics designed for the realities of the fire ground, with a focus on flame resistance, low thermal conductivity, break-open protection, durability, and comfort. Because when conditions change quickly, your PPE has to do more than just look the part. It has to perform again and again under heat, stress, wear, and real operational use. We're incredibly proud to partner with PBI because their work sits exactly where this podcast lives. Firefighter safety, education, innovation, and helping crews better understand the protection they really rely on every single day. To learn more, visit PBI Products and explore the science behind the fabrics protecting firefighters around the world. Let's get back to the show. In the corridor of that 5th floor of the 30-storey building, directly opposite apartment 509's front door, directly opposite, a matter of meters away, is the door to the staircase. The staircase that will, within a few minutes, fill with smoke from the ground up and become, for 6 people above the 20th floor, a sealed, toxic, fatal dead end. Open one door, one moment, everything that follows flows from that. Neighbours are awoken by the smell of smoke. 2 men living next door to 509 investigate. They see what's happened. One of them activates the manual pull station on the 5th floor wall, located right next to the staircase door. The other goes back inside to call 999, or in Canada, it's 911. The fire department receives the first call at 5:09 in the morning. They arrive on scene at 5:14. 5 minutes. Pretty good response. Well within the 10 minutes that we allow in the UK, and in many parts of the world, it's a very good response. First crews pull up to 2 Forest Laneway at 14 minutes past 5 in the morning and find apartment 509 fully engulfed. Flames visible outside, coming through the patio door, which is still open to the balcony. Fire is very much real. Fire is very much active. The fire is on the 5th floor and is clearly ventilated. What the arriving crew doesn't yet know, and that nobody yet knows, is that the building's 2 staircases have already been clogged with smoke for several minutes. Because here's what happened in the time between the couch bursting into flame and the first appliance arriving on scene. Remember the open apartment door? Connects to the corridor, directly to a room that was on fire. The smoke and heat from apartment 509 rolled across the corridor. It reaches the staircase door, and because the staircase door was not, in this instance, properly latched, and because the corridor is now full of heat and pressure, the fire breached it. The intense flame damaged the staircase door, and smoke and hot gases flooded directly into the stair shaft. Stack effect took care of the rest. The shaft sucked the smoke upwards within minutes, not long minutes really, not 5 or 10 minutes either. Within a very few minutes of the fire alarm sounding, both staircases in that building were, in the words of the NRC study, clogged with smoke. It's now approximately 5:15 in the morning. 560 people are waking up. Many of them will try to evacuate, and the staircase they're heading for are already at this moment potentially lethal to them. So, I want to pause there and make you sit with a number. That number is 16 minutes. So from the moment the fire alarm activated, around 5 o'clock, based on the pull station being activated, probably a minute or two after the fire went fully alight, to 5:30 in the morning, there was a window there, a 16-minute window in which it was possible to self-evacuate from above the 5th floor via the stairs. After 5:30, that window closed. Researchers cross-referenced the timing data from the 219 questionnaire responses, which was looking at who evacuated, when they started, and whether they made it out. The finding was pretty rough and stark. Occupants above the fire floor who started their evacuation attempt after 5:30, none of them made it to the ground floor under their own power. None of them. They were forced back by smoke. They sought refuge in other people's apartments. They waited on balconies. They called out from windows. They were rescued by firefighters, many of them hours later, but they didn't get down those stairs. 16 minutes. That was the window. Now think about what was happening inside those apartments at 5 in the morning. 84% of the population were asleep. The alarm sounders were in the corridors, not in the bedrooms. The research found that 24% of the building's occupants, roughly 1 in 4, never heard the fire alarm at all while it was sounding. The alarm was sounding. People were dying above the 20th floor, and 1 in 4 occupants in the building didn't even hear it. In some corner apartments, And the research specifically identifies corner units as being significantly less likely to hear the alarm. The alarm level measured around 50 decibels, even with the bedroom door open. 50 decibels, that's a very, very, very quiet conversation. When you're asleep, it's effectively nothing. The building had 11 false alarms in the year of 1994. 11. So residents had been woken by false alarms 11 times in the previous year. So if you've been woken 11 times by an alarm, that turned out to be absolutely nothing. And on the 12th time, you heard it faintly through your bedroom wall in the middle of January at 5 in the morning. How urgently are you going to move? Probably not. Normalization of the signal. It's a concept from aviation, from nuclear safety, from any high reality industries that has studied how humans respond to warning systems that cry wolf too often. When an alarm goes off, when it fires frequently, and then consequence of ignoring it's usually nothing, humans begin to treat the alarm as noise. It's not stupidity. It's not even really laziness. It's just predictable, documented human cognitive response. And it killed people here because the window had closed and not enough people were even aware the window existed. And it's not a 1995 problem. It's a today problem. Right now, across every high-rise residential block in the UK, there are fire alarm systems with sounders in corridors, but not in bedrooms. There are buildings with histories of false alarms, like loads. We go to AFAs a lot where I work. And residents who have not been trained by experience to not take the alarm seriously, and there's a 16-minute window that most of those residents don't know exists. We don't talk to occupants in those terms, do we? We don't say, when the alarm goes, you have 16 minutes before the stairs may become unsurvivable. If you don't move in the first 16 minutes, you may not be able to move at all. We put a notice in the lift, telling people not to use the lift in the event of a fire. We hand out leaflets. We do fire safety exercises that maybe some of them attend, maybe some of them don't attend. We have coffee mornings in their foyers, or we speak to the responsible person, and we just kind of hope for the best. Forest Laneway suggests that hope is not a strategy. Now, I want to cycle back for a second to that open apartment door, because I don't think we can fully understand this incident without spending a little bit of time with it. So again, one door, apartment 509, is open. Now, in a building with proper compartmentation, that door, had it been closed, would have held the smoke in the apartment, or at least significantly slowed its spread into the corridor. The fire was genuinely, substantially contained to the apartment of origin. The building was doing what the building is designed to do. Concrete was holding. The fire-rated construction was working. The door wasn't working because the door was open. The man who left apartment 509 with the door open, I want to be clear about something. He was not being reckless. He wasn't trying to kill people. He wasn't being careless. He was being human. He was in a room that was rapidly filling with smoke. His immediate instinct was to get out of the room. He vented it with the balcony, which actually kind of makes things slightly worse in terms of giving the fire air, but was an instinctive thing to do when you can't see through the smoke. You might know where your balcony door is, and what's the other side of the balcony door is fresh air. And he ran. And in the act of running, he left the door open. How many people in that situation would have stopped to pull the door shut? Honestly, be honest. I'm asking you, a trained firefighter, how many of your occupants are going to remember in that moment to close the door behind them? Honestly. This is why self-closing devices on apartment doors are not just bureaucratic niceties. I know they seem frustrating. They are literally life safety mechanisms. MSA are supporting us on today's podcast, and I chose to partner with them because I've been wearing this stuff for nearly 20 years, and they are the global leader in development, manufacture, and supply of incredible, safe products that really protect people, not just our communities out there, but also first responders, most importantly, all over the world. Get yourself over to MSA and have a look at it. The high-performance protective clothing for emergency services responders. They also partner with us on the UK Pink Firefighters. It's because we love them. The helmets with the reflective visor, the F1XF, absolutely epic helmet. And not forgetting how they improve firefighter safety through their connectivity in the connected firefighter platform. MSA are always pushing the envelope, and it's a real privilege to be able to continue to grow our partnership together. So whether it's your PPE, your bunker gear, your helmets, your SCBA, your thermal imaging, your Luna, or your portable gas detection, both of us know that this equipment needs to work. It needs to be high quality, reliable, and dependable in the moment. And that's why I use MSA, because they know what's at stake. In the UK, following Grenfell, and the subsequent building safety legislation, there's been significant focus on self-closing devices, and rightly so. A self-closing door doesn't rely on a panicked occupant making the right decision under extreme stress. It closes, because that's what it does. Forest Laneway, 1995. No self-closing devices. One door open, 6 dead. The apartment door also had an additional geometric catastrophe working against it. It sat directly opposite the door of the fire staircase. Not on the same side of the corridor, not at the end of the corridor, directly opposite. When apartment 509's door was open and the fire was rolling out, the staircase was the direct line of sight. The smoke had kind of nowhere else to go. The building's designers almost certainly never thought about this. The staircase door was placed where it was for floor plan efficiency more than anything else. The apartment layout was set where it was for the same reason. The fact that Unit 509's door opened directly onto the staircase was not a decision anyone really made consciously. It was a consequence of 100 small decisions that nobody ever stress tested against the scenario of a fire in that specific apartment with that door open. And that's how these things work. Danger is not one decision, it's an accumulation of 100 decisions. None of them seemed dangerous individually. So here's a question. If you were trapped in a smoke-filled staircase above the 5th floor, smoke below you, and you couldn't go down, what would you try and do? You'd go up. Of course you would. Your instinct would be to get above the smoke, to get maybe onto the roof. We think to ourselves, oh yeah, I'm going to get onto the roof. I'm going to wait for rescue. I'm going to wave my arms at a passing helicopter or a drone, something visible from the outside, and you just go up. And that's exactly what the researchers believe these 6 victims did. Dr. Guylaine Proulx, I apologize, I've probably pronounced that name wrong, was the lead researcher on the NRC study, examined the data from the staircase, the location of the bodies, and the testimony of survivors, and concluded that these 6 people caught in the upper reaches of the staircases turned back by smoke below, attempted to ascend to the roof. The roof of 2 Forest Laneway was locked. It's not broken, not stuck, it was locked, which is standard practice for the building, as it would be in most residential blocks. A locked roof access door is just normal building management. You don't want people to get onto the roof and try and do crazy stuff, or if they've had a terrible day, make their way to the roof for a long-term decision to a short-term problem. Those 6 people climbed in thickening smoke towards a door that would not open. They were overcome before they could come back. Coroner's inquest, when it examined this fire, specifically noted that ideally, roof access should be available as an area of refuge where other safety considerations or conditions can be met. The inquest also noted that where roof access is not available, that information needs to be communicated to occupants clearly, specifically, and in advance. Has anyone ever told the occupants of a high-rise block in your area that the roof is locked? Not in a leaflet, I mean actually told them face-to-face in like a fire safety session that we do, in a way that would make them remember it at 5 a.m. when they're half asleep and the stairs is filling with smoke. The roof is locked. This is a conversation about what happens at the point where everything else has failed. The alarm didn't wake them up. The alarm didn't do the thing it was supposed to do, wasn't loud enough. The stairs were unusable. They can't go down. What now? In buildings where stay put was the default doctrine, the answer was stay in your flat, close the door, wait for us, which is right, which is what you should do. But the corollary of that advice, the advice about what happens when staying in your flat isn't possible because you're already in the staircase, that advice I don't really think is given. You go up, you find a locked door, and you die. Right, let's break it up a little bit and let's talk about physics for a minute. Not textbook physics, like operational physics, the kind that kills people. Stack effect. Let's go back. In simple terms, is the chimney effect that tall buildings experience because of the temperature difference between inside and outside. In the winter, the inside of the building is warm. The outside, obviously, is cold. Warm air is less dense than cold air. In a tall shaft, a staircase, a lift shaft, an atrium, warm air rises, cold air is drawn in from the bottom to replace it, and the taller the building, the colder the outside temperature, the more powerful this effect is going to be. On January 6, 1995, in Toronto in winter, the temperature outside to Forest Laneway, as I've already said, it's sub-zero. Inside the building, it's warm. Stair shaft was 30 stories tall. Stack effect in that building in those conditions was at or near probably the maximum possible intensity. Fire was on the 5th floor. Small fire, relatively speaking, contained in terms of actual combustion to one apartment, but the smoke and combustion products from that apartment entered the stair shaft at the 5th floor, and the stack effect did the rest. It pulled that smoke upwards hard and fast, not gently drifting. It was driven. Neutral plane of this building, the equilibrium point was spoken about between upward and downward pressure, sat at around the 16th floor. Above that point, the stack effect was at its most aggressive. Smoke at the 16th floor and above was being actively pulled upwards. The higher you went, in some ways, the worse the conditions. All 6 fatalities were above the 20th floor. William Wood watches are back supporting the podcast, and honestly, it means a lot to me because this brand is built on real service heritage. Whether it's the melting down of the original 1920s British brass firefighter helmets, and they also use upcycled fire hose on all of their straps. It's not just design, it's about the job, and it's built into every single component. I've been wearing them for 10 years now. Found them back in 2015, actually, and they've genuinely been a part of my daily kit ever since. I've got 2. I've got the Valiant and I've got the Chivalrous as well in Midnight Blue. But the thing about the brand, about William Wood watches, it stands so different because of its story. Take, for example, their Dunkirk watch. That's not just a timepiece. It's actually built to honour the Massey Shore fireboat. I'll be honest though, the one I've got my eye on this year is the Fearless. It's more of like a field watch on the station, on the watch. It's a smaller 39mm case, compact, rugged, just feels right for the job. So you can actually get 10% off a William Wood watch by using code FFPodcast. If you want to be part of the history and you want to wear it on your wrist, jump in the notes, check out William Wood watches. Let's get back to the show. Now, for city firefighters, I say city firefighters because that's where a lot of the high-rise are. How often, when we're talking about high-rise firefighting, do we really have a genuine tactical conversation about the stack effect? Not like theory, the actual application. When your station gaffer, your sub-officer, your watch manager is briefing a high-rise residential fire in January, a fire that's broken out on the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th floor, does the briefing include anything about where the smoke is likely to be concentrated? Does it include a neutral plane? Does it include the fact that in winter conditions, with the staircase open to a fire, the upper floors may be as badly or more badly affected than the floors immediately above the fire? In most fire brigades, the high-rise fire protocol focuses heavily on floor of origin, floors above the fire. Search and rescue priorities, absolutely all correct. Maybe you'll talk about your line setup, where you're going to set up your bridgehead. Some people might talk about flow rates. Most people maybe don't even go through what a riser actually has the ability to flow. But the stack effect piece, the physics of where that smoke is going in winter conditions, I think is less consistently briefed. It's less consistently understood, perhaps at a watch level, and it's less consistently part of the conversation. This fire is a controlled experiment in what stack effect does in a 30-storey building in winter with a compromised stair shaft. The experiment results: fire stays mostly on floor 5, and the casualties ended up above floor 20. What does that mean for your next tactical priorities on the next real high-rise fire call on a cold January morning? The Canadian Wood Council's fire safety analysis of the incident puts it plainly: stack effect is believed to have contributed to the loss. The fire originated and was mainly contained on the 5th floor, yet all the casualties were located on the 20th floor. It's not a subtle finding. It's a direct, documented, causal link between the physics of tall buildings in cold weather and where people die in them. So brief it, talk about it, make it part of the operational culture, because the next Forest Laneway is going to happen. Will you be ready for it? I want to cycle back again just to the staircase, not the physics of the smoke in the staircase. I know we've done a lot about that, but the design. Because this was a building feature that, in my view, doesn't really receive enough attention in the UK operational briefings. And it's not something you're going to see a massive amount of. But the scissors stair, it's not like an exotic feature. It is a common design solution in residential high-rise concentration from the 1960s through to the 80s, precisely the era when the UK built a lot of it's tower block housing stock, to be honest. Design is efficient, provides two separate means of escape with a single shaft, with, of course, which in principle is kind of a good thing. Compartmentation, redundancy. A lot of our staircases, we only have one in the UK. So there'll only be one staircase, which makes this all the more prevalent, really, because there'll be no alternative staircase for people to take. In practice, what it creates is a navigational trap, really, for the staircase. Think about it from a perspective of a firefighter entering a building under air, on BA, in smoky conditions. You push through the door into the stairwell and you're in a scissor stair. You start ascending on the 5th floor, the stair switches. You need to exit and re-enter on the opposite side to continue in the same staircase. In smoke, in a building you've never walked before, under time pressure. The crew themselves from 2 Forest Laneway experienced exactly this. The research documented that the confusion caused by the scissors stair layout affected their search and rescue operations as well as the ability of occupants to evacuate. There's a phrase in high-rise reliability organizations, a phrase that's actually borrowed from aviation and used a lot in the military, and it is this: surprise is the enemy. The idea that when crews encounter something unexpected in a high-pressure situation, cognitive load required to process that surprise eats directly into capacity they need to make good decisions. A scissor stair that you've never encountered before in smoke at 2 in the morning or 5 in the morning is a surprise, and a lethal one. The answer to this, and it's not really a complicated answer, it's familiarization. 7.2D visits, it's risk inspections, it's building walks, pre-incident planning, kind of operational intelligence that means when your crew rolls up to that building, they know what they're walking into. They know it's a scissor stairs. They know which doors lead into which staircases on which floor. They know the neutral plane and the stack effect characteristics of that building type. And they know the roof is locked. And they know the alarm's coverage gaps, perhaps. It's not some crazy exotic design. And it's not beyond the reach of any of us, beyond any watch, any station, or any brigade in the UK. It's knowing your station ground. It's doing the patch walks. It's doing the visits. One practical question. How many scissors stairs, high-rise residential buildings, are in your station area? And how recently has your watch been round and walked them? Not just the ground floor, the actual stairs, all the way up, in normal conditions, so you know what it looks like when conditions are normal. If you can't answer that question clearly and confidently, that in itself is maybe a lesson from Forest Laneway. Okay, the juicy bit. Let's get into what happened after the fire department arrived. So, fire crews were on scene at 5:14. Palmer 5:09, fully engulfed. Third alarm response eventually assembled. 5 firefighters hospitalized. 5, that is, which tells you something about the conditions inside the building. Initial tactics from our research included using the building's public address system to advise residents to come to their balconies if smoke was entering their apartments. Firefighters used bullhorns to communicate with occupants. 27 people heard the bullhorn messages. 21 of those 27 said the messages were unclear. The PA system was used. 10 people heard it. 4 said the messages were unclear. Think about that. You've got 560 people in that building, a significant number of whom are awake now, very scared, and have no idea what they should be doing. And your communication system is reaching a fraction of them and telling the rest of them nothing coherent. This is a failure of communication infrastructure. It's not a failure of the firefighters using it. It's a failure of the building's life safety systems to provide a meaningful channel of communication in an emergency. It's worth noting that in the UK following Grenfell, there's been a significant investment in fire evacuation alerting systems in high-rise residential buildings, systems that provide clear instructions directly into apartments. That investment matters. Forest Laneway is one of the reasons it matters. Firefighters smashed open doors where occupants didn't respond to knocking. They moved through floors with hose lines laid. The firefighting equipment, hose, BA sets, tools, forcible entry, caused movement restrictions in the 3rd to 5th floor staircase area, with 6 occupants reporting that their evacuation was impeded by the equipment. Definitely not a criticism. Of course it isn't. It's a physical reality of high-rise residential firefighting. When you have crews pushing hose upwards through staircases, that is simultaneously the primary evacuation route for hundreds of people. those two flows are in conflict. Managing that conflict is one of the hardest tactical decisions in this type of incident. Quick pause, because I want to tell you about a new partnership we have with First Tactical. First Tactical builds equipment for people who work when environments are seriously unforgiving. And if you go to their website, you'll find kit is designed specifically for us, for firefighters, for police officers, technical rescue teams, fire investigation, hazmat, hazardous materials teams, urban search and rescue. This is honestly the equipment that you really want to rely on. It's built for real operations, real pressure, long ass days, and I genuinely use this stuff. Here's a few of my favorites. They've got their men's Defender short sleeve. I've got that in black. It's got a huge load of specialized pockets, space for all of our gears, the pads, the pens, all of the stuff. It's got them on the sleeves on both sides. Also got the Defender pants. These have got 28 pockets in total on them. It's mad. Let's be honest, we absolutely love the bags. I use their 25-litre specialist half-day backpack. The shoulder straps as well are strong AF. Like I say, this isn't lifestyle gear. Is built for real world, real operations. We talk about the realities of the job, and First Tactical is just the ideal partnership for us. So go take a look, firsttactical.co.uk. Now back to the show. Fire itself was contained. The building's concrete construction held. Fire didn't spread beyond the apartment of origin in any meaningful way, the reports show. But the time the fire was under control and systematic rescue could begin, that was not until approximately 10 in the morning. Nearly 5 hours after the fire started. By 10 o'clock, rescue personnel began systematically evacuating remaining occupants, mostly using the lifts under firefighter escort, effectively. Some occupants weren't evacuated until the afternoon. One person wasn't evacuated until 6 in the evening. 6 in the evening, 13 hours after the fire started. In a building, they couldn't leave because the stairs were unsafe and they didn't know what else to do. 91.8% of the building's occupants required firefighter rescue. That is not a small number of people that needed help. Nearly the entire building, really. 550 people who couldn't self-evacuate, who were entirely dependent on the fire service to get them out. I want you to sit with that number, that figure for a second, and put it in a UK context. You've received a call to a high-rise residential block. It's a fire, it's 5 in the morning. 92% of the building's occupants cannot get themselves out. How many crews do you need to systematically evacuate a 30-floor building? How is that resourced? How does the command structure work? And how long does it take? They're not rhetorical questions. These are planning questions. These are questions that should be answered in your services, in your brigades, in the high-rise residential response protocols, in your procedures. And they should be answered with the Forest Laneway data in the room. After the fire, a formal coroner's inquest examined the deaths. The NRC's Dr. Brooks, I bet I said it wrong again, presented the research findings. The inquest made a series of recommendations, and the recommendations were reasonable. They were evidence-based, and they included mandatory training for building owners and supervisory staff, a formal certification course so that people responsible for the buildings understood their fire safety obligations, understand how to support the occupants, understand how to support arriving firefighters. There was a thing there about improved alarm audibility sound, effectively, addressing the fact that alarm sounders in corridors don't reliably wake sleeping occupants behind closed bedroom doors. Better communication during the fires. Test and maintain the PA systems. Make voice communications actually intelligible. Can you hear it? Regular fire drills for occupants. Fire safety information in multiple languages. In 2 Forest Laneway, as an example, 10% of the occupants spoke Chinese at home, and non-English-speaking residents had significantly lower fire safety awareness and significantly less chance of knowing what to do in a fire. All reasonable, all sensible, and all supported by evidence from the fire itself. Now, the Ontario Building Code revision of 1996, in the cycle that followed the Forest Laneway fire, there was a proposal to mandate sprinkler systems in all new high-rise residential buildings in Ontario. The proposal was debated. The proposal was, at the provincial level, not adopted. A mandatory sprinkler system on the 5th floor of 2 Forest Laneway would almost certainly have extinguished or controlled the fire before it left the apartment. Corridor would have been protected. Staircase door would not have been breached. Both stair shafts would not have been filled with smoke. And ultimately, 6 people would not have died in the stairwell trying to reach a locked roof. But the sprinkler proposal wasn't adopted. I'm not going to try and draw a direct comparison to the UK's own history on this. Grenfell is a separate conversation with its own weight and its own lessons, and it's also only one high-rise fire in the UK. But I will say this, the pattern of inquiry, recommendations, and incomplete implementation is not unique to Canada. It's not unique to 1995 either, and it's not unique to any one jurisdiction. We have been having the same conversations about fire safety in high-rise residential buildings, about alarms, about sprinklers, about self-closing doors, about stay put versus evacuation, about communication, about building owner training for decades. The evidence has been there, recommendations have been made, the implementation has been incomplete. Forest Laneway is one of the data points in that longer story. So what do we want to take away? Well, I want to close with something that the research data from this fire keeps coming back to, because I think maybe it's the most important operational principle that comes out of this incident and that you might find useful when you go into your next high-rise fire. 6 people died. And the researchers' assessment, none of them needed to. Not because the firefighters failed or they were rubbish. That's never what we're here to do in the debriefs. They got there in 5 minutes. They fought the fire. They even hospitalized 5 of their own doing so. They spent the entire day systematically getting 500 people out of the building they were trapped in. Not because the building failed catastrophically. Concrete held. Fire stayed on the 5th floor. 6 people died because a series of small, ordinary, unremarkable things happened in the wrong order. An open door, a cold January night, a staircase nobody fully understood, an alarm nobody heard, a roof that was locked, a window of 16 minutes that nobody knew existed. No single one of these things on its own was enough to kill anyone. Together, they were lethal. This is what systems thinking in high-rise environments means in practice. It's not about finding the one big failure and fixing it. It's about understanding how ordinary things combine in extraordinary ways to produce catastrophic outcomes, and then working backwards from that understanding to change the ordinary things before the extraordinary things happen. What does that mean for you, concretely, tomorrow, when you get on the truck? Walk your high-rise buildings, the stairs, all the way up. Note the stair design. Note the alarm coverage. Note the roof access. Note the neutral plane and what winter stack effect would do to a fire on the 3rd, 4th, 5th floor, whatever. Maybe think about your window. 16 minutes is, of course, not universal, so don't take that number. It varies on building, by fire, by season, by stack effect. I couldn't walk into a building and just work it out. But somewhere in every high-rise fire, there is a window. And your job tactically is to have a think about it, to identify where that window is and operate inside it. Close the door. In the UK, we are well into post-Grenfell era of building safety legislation. Self-closing devices are mandated in new buildings, in new builds, and in significant refurbishments. But millions of people still live in buildings without them. Every time we talk to a resident about fire safety, closing the door needs to be in the message. Every time we walk a building in a housing association or a building manager, self-closing devices need to be in that conversation. So know your stock and know your stack. High-rise, winter, sub-zero outside. Smoke does not behave in the way that it would in a ground floor terrace. Where the fire is not where the danger will be, concentrated. So brief it. Tell people that. And finally, communicate clearly or assume communication will fail. The PA system that they had in place reached 10 people. The bullhorn was unclear to most who heard it. In an emergency at 5 a.m, in a 500-person building, the communication infrastructure failed the people who needed it most. Whatever channel you're using, test it. Use multiple channels and plan for them all to fail and have a physical backup. 30 years ago, that's what it is. 30 years ago, a building in Toronto, 6 people found in a staircase above the 20th floor in a fire that never even left the 5th floor. The physics that drove those people upward and the physics that killed them is the same physics operating in high-rise residential blocks across the United Kingdom tonight. That's what I want you to get. That's the lesson from Forest Laneway. And that's why we're telling this story. Thanks for joining us on this debrief. I hope you take a lot away from it. We will endeavour to pull the transcript off this and put it down for you to be able to take away and use and share with your teams. This was the Forest Laneway fire. Share it with people, stick it in a WhatsApp group, save it, download it, steal it, do whatever you like. Put it, just grab the links, put it on a presentation so that we can learn from these stories. We're going to keep coming with the debriefs. We know you've asked for more. I absolutely love them. They take a long time to put together because I want to make sure we get it right. And I'm sure there will still be variations of inaccuracies in this one. But I appreciate you showing up. Appreciate you wanting to learn. I will continue to want to learn, and I'll keep bringing that out to everybody else. I'll see you next time. Well, that's it for today, folks. Hope you took a lot away from that episode. We started the Firefighters podcast to develop, inspire, connect, motivate, represent, and most importantly, celebrate the world of incredible emergency services operators and the wider sector through this series of wide-ranging conversations. We really love creating this podcast and bringing it to so many people. Did you know you can also find these on YouTube? We do a lot of video podcasts now. You can head over to our YouTube page and follow, subscribe there. And as a final ask from us, whatever platform you're on, please rate the podcast. It really helps us as a key performance indicator to reach more and more people. I've been your host, Pete Wakefield. This has been the Firefighters podcast. And wherever you are in the world, please stay safe, be happy, and where possible, please remember and support your firefighters and first responders. I'll see you next time.